this at stupid o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Although it's only stupid o'clock on a Tuesday morning if you live somewhere in Europe. It's stupid o'clock PM if you live somewhere in California, such as our two gents that are also here. Aaron and Ripley, how are you both this morning?
I'm getting over congestion, so I apologize for my voice in advance.
Oh,
congestion.
The
Is
lurgy.
it like a traffic jam?
Do you have the lurgy?
Well, it's better than the classic disease consumption, which basically meant anything that was killing you.
Oh, I've got a bad case of consumption. Every time
Yeah.
I'm at the boutique, I just bad case of consumption.
I'm just recovering from some congestion. Yes.
But it's the lurgy. That's the lurgy. You were looking for a definition of the lurgy. That's what you've got. You've got the lurgy.
How lucky of me.
Dear me. Grand. How are you this morning, David?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
It's not
good.
stupid o'clock here. I think it's
Yeah,
nice and early and
You do well out of this arrangement, to be fair.
yeah.
Generally.
Finally.
Finally, David benefits from something in the watch world.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
This is it. This is your reward for all those many hours of reviews. Your reward is that you don't have to deal with stupid o'clock at all
having
when
a ball
recording
right
the show.
now.
Having a great
great.
time. And how is the weather in Budapest?
Oh, it's scorching hot during the day, but it cools down during the night. So all the windows and everything has to be wide open just to cool the place down a little bit.
So is that a heat wave in that part of Central Europe as it is over here in the UK? Except in Scotland,
time.
where obviously it's not a heat wave. Gentlemen, because weather's just what we like to talk about in the UK. How's the weather in your neck of the woods?
About the same as what David said. It's pretty hot during the day. If you go out during the heat of the day wearing an Apple Watch, it advises you about the UV warning. And then if it's at the pavement's also hot to the point where I'll carry my little dog from one patch of grass to the other. So we try to avoid the heat of the day. And then it cools off at night. So of course all the windows come open to just let out what, a micro sauna that's accumulated, past 4 p.m.
So do we
I wonder
think
if
that
anyone. Oh, I was saying, I wonder if anyone has actually had their smartwatches overheat. Like I know, like mobile phones overheat. Is that I wonder, and then they just stop operating. Like, sorry, too hot to tell you the time.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, never.
Okay.
Probably because I don't wear a smartwatch.
Well,
but
I think it might not generate enough heat in turn, because sometimes when you're driving and your phone's been running GPS for a while, it itself gets hot. Maybe the Apple Watch isn't big enough to emit enough heat, but also you got to figure if it was just indirect sunlight baking, like you left your phone on a table at the barbecue type of thing, but it was your arm to the point where it would get so hot that the electronics would stop, you would have a wicked sunburn and probably an epic watch tan.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You and the watch are heavily injured.
Oh, that's how you make AI. It just fuses to your skin, and then you get Apple Intelligence.
Is that
like
might
a
be the
superhero
closest
origin story?
Yeah,
I merged with my smart device.
The worst superpower ever. You just have Siri, circa 2020.
I know what my heart rate is really precisely.
That's right. I can set a timer, but my superpower is I can set a timer, and that's all I'm useful for.
I also know when I have text messages.
And then in a few years, the software update will slowly but surely hinder my functionality.
Is it possible to overcharge a solar watch?
nope.
I don't believe so.
Maybe?
I think they have it's a solar panel in it, but it's basically recharging a rechargeable battery. So in the same way that you leave your camera batteries unplugged, the light goes green, and if you hit that happened overnight, it's not like it keeps charging.
Okay, let's get to the point. Rick wants to have a YouTube channel where he just shoots smartwatches or solar watches with laser beams and be like, let's see what happens. Does it charge it? Does
it's
it
funny that this
destroy
is
it?
coming from the person in Scotland asking if your solar watch is going to get too much
Is it
sun.
possible? I'm just excited about the idea you could overcharge something solar. I've never seen sunshine before. I
That
don't
much
know.
light?
Is it possible? Anyway, right, let's crack on and start our show. So I think a round of applause to begin with this week to Tudor for producing the same watch as they've already produced, but this time a yellow. So let's begin our show with a round of applause to Tudor. Well done, Tudor. The skill and talent involved. Excellent work. Okay, greetings. Welcome to our show. You join
Can that
us
please
having
count as the clap in, by the way?
that counts.
Yep.
The clapping this week will now just be each week. We will give a short round of applause to something in
That's
the
good.
watch world. So if you would like to suggest a round of applause to something in the watch world, then message the show podcast at Blog to Watch Weekly, or come on the live chat at 7:30 on a Tuesday morning UK time and stick in the chat, because we do a wee preamble. Stick in the chat what you would like us to give us a round of applause to, and then we'll start the show with that. That can be your way of contributing. Anyway, so the big question this week for, I think, just Arrow and Ripley, although David may be able to answer this question, is the F1 movie any good, or have IWC backed a donkey?
It's very
It's got
visual.
great. Oh, go ahead, Ripley.
I was going to say it's very visually entertaining. You know, there's sort of this whole story of how it was even filmed could be a very interesting documentary, because you can't just make an F1 circuit and F1 cars and do all of this and have it race. So they actually mounted them on the cars. Brad Pitt is in, I think it's a 2 or 3 year old car that they filmed at these circuits. They worked with Apple to take the same technology that's in the modern iPhones to shrink them down so they could fit into the cars and not disrupt the aero with them and get those really dynamic shots. And so what you get from the film is different angles than when you're watching TV. You know, we're all familiar with the 360 shots. You know, we got the visor cam, but this is different. It's just not what they're currently using for like F1 TV or Sky Sports or whatever. So you get some very, very dynamic shots. If you watch F1, it is very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. We didn't even discuss the number of points on his license that might have accrued throughout the film, or the conflict of interest of having relations with your technical director. But there is a great watch scene. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a subtle dig at Rolex. So go see it, and you can keep your eyes out for it.
And are the Rolex banners all still in the background of the Formula One? Yes.
So everywhere. So much.
No way.
So they didn't CGI them for LVMH. They're now the sponsor of everything.
No, but I think that's almost okay. They did work in, so it was filmed over the course of like last year, and I think it spanned 2 years, and so you do see an LVMH trophy being presented, a Louis Vuitton trophy. So they got the branding in on it.
Okay, good.
The movie. Oh, go ahead.
No, go on.
I would say the movie feels like the visuals came first, and then they had to like wrap a plot around it. And the visuals were like Brad Pitt, car racing, and a lot of watch shots. I mean, that's basically the movie.
So if you like cars and watches, it's awesome. But I mean, they unfortunately chose a sport that isn't very exciting. Like
just not narrative or plot.
Like in a lot of F1, it's sort of like chess with cars. It's their strategy. Some of it's pre-decided based on how you used your tires during qualifying and practice over the weekend. It's little subtle changes, undercuts, overcuts. This is not like, the big Hail Mary Super Bowl moment. It's a very different sport. So it inherently doesn't lend itself to like really exciting passes. It's stuff kind of like NASCAR, unless there's a crash, they're just kind of going in a circle. There's a lot going on, and it's hard, don't get me wrong, but it's not necessarily the most dynamic thing. If you were just watching a film about NASCAR, they'd have to spruce it up with some story and some drama. And in F1, where there's really no contact allowed unless, it's total racing incident.
I got a lot of Speed Racer vibes.
I love the Speed Racer movie, the live action one. That thing was awesome. From like
I'm just saying, a lot of it, I just felt like that. Like it was kind of silly. Only the Brad Pitt racer does the weird stuff. Every other driver is like a bot, basically, right? Has to follow the rules. But this Maverick who thinks outside of the box. The reality is they would all be doing funny business at that point. So it kind of feels like this cartoon where there's like the good guys and the bad guys who are really dumb. But good. Again, it's a fun movie visually. I'm really happy we got to see it in IMAX. Again, I can't stress how many good watch shots there are. There's so many IWCs in the movie. I
was gonna say any shot I've seen so far still, and I don't know, it's just because I'm into watches, but all I can see is IWC.
They're everywhere. It's like all the closeouts that they couldn't sell, they just gave to the entire crew and cast, and they're just like, here, take the last 3 years of unsold watches. Problem solved.
Well, this is my question: are IWC going to sell any more watches because of this? Does it give you the vibe that
Probably.
folk are going to be into
Of course.
IWC watches?
It's better. It's a better done integration than some of the other
Okay.
ones in the past. Like
Yeah.
Richemont especially has had some hits and misses. Some of the IWC ones, I keep mentioning Wall Street too, very hokey.
Yeah.
I think it hit a high point.
John Wick.
Well, that's not Richemont.
I know it's not
hit
Richemont, but I'm just thinking of hokey
Jaeger
watch.
when they were in the Iron Man ones. That was fun. Still hokey, but fun.
And the Watchwinder.
But what I like about this, the watch brands are getting more aggressive. Like they're no longer okay with like a quick 1 second scene. They're like, we need to be in the shot like every 6 minutes, like if not less. Like there's more watches in there than Brad Pitt, I think.
There probably is, because you can only have one Brad Pitt, and this is like a room full of people all wearing IWCs, and it's not because they're like sponsored by IWC and their drivers. It'll be like the team owner, random rich person. Everyone's okay, big pilot, where everyone's got an IWC in this world. But I think it's smart for them because unless you're the sponsor like Tag is of the whole F1, it's really hard to stake, carve out a niche in F1 for yourself or get yourself associated with it. And I think doing this in a big manner, in a very mainstream manner, like the F1 movie, there's going to be so many people that watch this movie that will never, ever wake up at 4 a.m. on a Saturday to watch it, but they'll watch the movie. So I think it's a really good way for them to correlate themselves with F1 and just sort of build that association. They do have a very legitimate partnership with Mercedes that's been long running as well. So it's not really a new thing for them, but this is a great way to not let Tag have all the fun, basically.
Yeah. Well, we'll see whether we'll see in a year's time what the sales have done to IWC.
It did nothing to help LVMH. There was the trophy, I think, in there where they had like, that was the only nod to them, where they had the Louis Vuitton
They
trophy
missed the boat
case.
on that.
Chris Granger even makes a brief cameo in the film.
Oh my goodness!
Does he?
Really?
Mm-hmm, he does.
As a driver or love interest or
no.
businessman?
Very, very brief. Very brief.
That like the Bremen brothers in, what was that film? They were both in Kingsman. They were both Kingsman. They were both in Kingsman. Or at least one of them.
Okay, so we now know that IWC gave away a lot of watches. You know what?
Yeah.
Good for the crew and cast.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see whether you can identify the bump in IWC watch production as entirely for this movie rather than because they sold any in a year's time. But we shall see. Right, we're going to introduce, having trailed it last week, and he's going to help it because Ariel's useless at choosing random numbers. Chives, the watch butler, is going to help us choose a random number. Introducing Chives. So we're going to ask Chives to select a number between 1 and 1,171 for our blast from the past section. So typing it in now.
I'm not jealous. This is no longer my job, by the way.
Rick, have you programmed an AI watch butler, or have you found the random number generator in like Microsoft Excel?
No. I can show you Chives. This is Chives. I tested it. So this is the third time. And I've programmed him with a bit of an attitude. So third time's charm. I'll bless you with 1,090. He's got a Scottish accent. 1,097. That one's got a limited edition no one asked for. Maybe a bronze case with a salmon dial. Slap the 12,000 called. Now, seriously, well, okay, he's getting a bit annoyed that all I've done this morning is ask him to generate random numbers. But let's go to page 1,100.
Prepare for
and 97.
Brace yourselves for a lot of low resolution or completely unloading images, basically, at this point. Okay. That's what it's going to be.
So
it's the Wayback Machine at this point.
Yeah.
So
oh my God.
Have a guess at what's on this page.
Can't we do this when we get on the new server? This will be so much better in a few weeks.
Yeah. Let's see if there's any watches actually loading. Yeah, there's not a lot loading on this. Okay.
Share your screen, Rick.
There we go. We'll share the screen. There we go. That's what we've got. Okay. We've got Roger DeVries, easy. Yeah, there's not a lot of images. My Bremen Martin Baker on Ask Men. Ariel was writing for AskMen.com back in the day.
It was a good gig. That was
That was good.
gig.
Was that a good gig?
All the articles are by Ariel. Let's look at
Yeah,
that as well.
that's so. Ariel, as soon as you wrote a Vulcan Diver Extreme, I quite like that watch. Let's see if there's any.
I remember this
pictures.
thing. This was great.
Yeah, this is cool.
Wow.
This is cool. This is a
Looks like
great
a
watch. Love these.
The noughties
I mean,
are back. That's
how
good.
does compare what the brand makes today? How is this not like 1,000 times more exciting?
Oh,
Like, this is like the Las Vegas club, and the stuff they make now is like some. You know,
Retirement
David, those
home.
depressing bars in Basel, Switzerland, we used to look at.
Oh yeah.
That's what the current stuff they make is. Okay.
What I like is that all the watches from the 2000s have an incomprehensible amount of numbers on them. Look at this. There's even this little like thing. They just love numbers and scales. There's 3 different scales. One on the bezel, one on the flange ring, and then another one on.
They also hated the
just on the
letter E
periphery.
before extreme.
Oh yeah.
That was a big
Well,
problem.
That's classic.
And these also looked, if you remember, these looked like the first generation Bremont Supermarines.
Yeah.
Yes. Look
Yep.
at the quality on that case and the intricacy of that case. Brands today would die if they would have to do something like that for other than $25,000. And I genuinely want to go back and look at these things and pull some examples, because what we're getting today are ridiculously bad and low effort.
Look at the fold-out
cases.
crown thing. This is an
Yeah.
alarm, so it took a lot of winding. And look, there's like this little thing that you could fold out.
Rick is so interested.
Oh, I'm so worried. He knows that if it's got a wee twiddly thing on the crown, he knows I want it. Well, let's out of interest, let's go to what is now called Chrono 27 and what is Vulcan Diver.
These are
Extreme.
rare. They're not that expensive. I remember I almost had a chance to get one time. My fear was that no one would fix it if it broke. But they're not that expensive. At least they weren't until recently. Again, no one even knows to look at them, but they not that many of these were made.
Yeah, I've got a Vulcan which is very similar to this, but it's not the extreme version. It is.
You got to go extreme.
Yeah, what
you
are
gotta
you
go
even
extreme.
doing?
Nowadays,
Didn't get the extreme.
Right. There's literally only 3 of them, it would appear.
The only one
So-
I ever saw in the wild for sale was like at a dealer who had these originally as new unsold stock, and they're like, "Oh, you want one of these?"
Yeah, there you go. 2.5 grand, 3 grand, maybe.
Yeah,
If you
not
wanted one of
great. Yeah,
these.
but those are the ugly ones.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
How dare you?
That's what they were trying to be in early. You remember like the Roger Dubuis that looked like this?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cool watch. It's a cool watch. Anyway, good stuff. Right. Well, there you go. That's our little blast from the past. Chai's first outing in the world of the internet. Let's have a look at this from Ariel, if I can find his most recent article, which should be bang on the home page. And if whoever's calling me on WhatsApp live in the show could stop doing it, that would be fine. Right, Ariel, industry must resist the temptation to surround itself with sycophants. There's certainly a sycophant born every minute at the moment in the world of watch media. I think we would seldom be accused of doing that. We are never afraid to bite the hand that feeds us. So to speak, Ariel, what's your conceit on this particular topic?
Well, we went with sycophants because yes, men and women just didn't sound as as snappy. It's just funny that you can't just say yes men, and then you have people saying, "Well, what about women?" Like, really, is that
There's
not
plenty.
enough?
Oh, there's plenty of yes women.
Yes.
This watch media sycophancy is an equal opportunities.
There's a lot of layers to this argument. This is something I've been talking about for many years. Really, what I'm focusing on right now is the exclusionary practice at brands to keep people away who they deem not supportive. I discussed this concept of supportiveness and how it's really kind of screwed up and completely divorced from what a relationship between brands and media should be. But I explained that these brands actually keep negative opinions away such that they live in these echo chambers, and we can see the result of it. And so I talk a little bit about the history. I talk about how brands have kind of vacillated back and forth with media, always trying to assert control. Talk about what's at stake, and I show a lot of examples of brands that fall into these easy traps. there's no incentive, honestly, in most of these brands to speak up or ever give your actual opinion. If anything, you're considered almost a traitor if you somehow go against the status. And each of us here have seen this many times where we speak to someone who admits that part of a brand strategy or something they're doing is dumb, but literally is like, nothing I can do about it, or that's what was decided. So I think what I'm trying to do is paint a picture for audiences out there so that they understand what's going on behind the scenes. Because as you said, if now most of the media are these yes men and women, these sycophants that are just really trying to placate the brands, that doesn't do the brands a lot of good. It doesn't do the audiences a lot of good. There's no one that does a lot of good except for a couple of egos. And so I really try to frame not this larger issue, because there's so many angles to this, from the employees they have and things like that, but just from the idea of who they surround themselves in terms of friends and media and stuff like that. We have certain brands, and I point out some of them, who exclusively, as we'll call them, friendly media, are people that they know 100% will only say nice, safe things about them. They don't even invite people who they think might say something that isn't glorious. And this is just bad for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And I've been told by colleagues, not at a blog to watch, but at other publications, that we should be writing more like this. That they can't. They want to. I mean, I think what people need to understand is when there's a watch event and there's various members of the meet together, we discuss these things, but none of them ever talk about it. And they admit, I don't have a place to talk about it. I don't have an editor who will take it. I'm afraid of my relationship with the brand. They kind of egg me on. Ariel, say what you think, but also say what we feel, represent our voice. Because I'm trying to engage in advocacy. I think this is the only way of getting brands to recognize that their behavior and their, I guess, their bad habits need to be changed. It's like if you have a friend who has some habit who's like killing himself, you need a little intervention, right? And I'm trying to do a bit of an intervention for the industry. That's what this is about.
Industry intervention. I have literally seen people come to you, giving you opinions, asking you to present that opinion to the world because they're too scared to. So yeah, an industry intervention. David Ripley, your experience of watch brands trying to make sure. I mean, I can think of one in particular who's like, we'll let you review the watch, but only if you say nice things. And I actually have seen one of them say to me, "Don't let Ariel see it. He'll only say, what they infer as of the truth," which was because they already knew it was a bad watch, and so we didn't get that because we were like, no, if we get it, we're going to tell you exactly what we think of it. No holds barred. Ripley?
Because we don't have a choice. That's what I don't think. Like, these brands think that somehow I can I'm not a magician. I can help people understand things that they see, but the core emotion people have, like these auction houses, have deluded the brands into thinking that audiences are just there to be manipulated. Oh, they don't care what to buy. They want to be told what's nice. They're going to be told what the value is. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. Consumers are smart. You guide them, you encourage them, you foster and nurture their collecting habits. You cannot tell them what to buy and at what price to buy it and when to buy it. This does not work. And the fact that brands do this, I just think that they have too much power right now. And that's the problem. Retailers, distributors, media, even the people that make the watches don't seem to have as much power as a small, consortium of individuals. And we all know that too much power corrupts, and there's a corrupt element to the industry right now, and it's marketing in the form of an echo chamber. And there's a lot of truly awful products out there that people aren't saying are bad or overpriced or that need to be fixed. And again, this is an industry with too much money at stake. I don't care how rich you are. These are expensive things to buy. You deserve to buy something that, doesn't have a lot of BS associated with it.
Well, I don't think criticism needs to be, I think just the mindset or how you look at criticism needs to change. It's not like we don't like you. It's this what thing you did wasn't successful or 100% successful. Back when I used to play sports, there was kind of always the thought of don't stress out when your coach is yelling at you. It's when he stops yelling you should be worried, because at that point he doesn't care. He is just not going to play you. Like you're not even in consideration. If he's yelling, it's because he knows you can do better and he expects that to be better. And I don't think criticism at all is a bad thing. That's how progress happens. You try something, it was X% of the way there, try 2 is closer to 100%, and that's how progress moves.
They don't want progress.
Yeah, but if I did something on my first effort, it was like, guys, what do you think? And you said it's brilliant, it's fantastic, we loved it, just keep doing that, it was amazing, it's perfect. I'm not going to do anything to make it better, and so that's kind of where progress ends. And so I don't think criticism, and I don't think we've ever written something that was just 100% start to finish bad. We discuss things and the pros and cons, point out the cons, discuss the things it does well, but contextualize it all. But like,
that's only because David's article on Richard Mill's not out yet.
Well, I mean, the stuff that's really bad, it's not like this stuff doesn't exist. We just don't write about it. There's so much bad stuff in the world. Like, we don't need to like spend thousands of words telling you that this is basically something that isn't worth your time. So if we're going to be writing about it, just by virtue of that alone, it means it's worthwhile to some degree, even if it's for us to vent our frustrations about something that the brand has done. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You need your friends, like Ariel said, to be honest with you, and that honesty is ultimately how you improve and grow. So
let's look at what the watch industry is. Well, let me say this, David. This is the watch industry is a process of making a tool better and better and better over time. You admit that it used to suck and now it's better, and it could still get better after that. There's always room for improvement. I think it's like part of Casio's core mantra. Like always do better, constant improvement. Like that is a core essence of this industry and why people like watches. For the industry then to say, no, it's art and this is my expression and emotion are above reproach. Like that's all horse shit. Like, I'm sorry, like, but we have to face that all the time. If something is not good and we don't like it, we're supposed to say it doesn't work, because we're in the industry if things are supposed to be iteratively better and better. That's why we're in this hobby. We're not here to get things that are just pretty things floating in space. I mean, some people are, but that's jewelry and porcelain figurine collecting. Sorry, David, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I think one thing we're forgetting is that a lot of these brands think that they cannot afford to lose one bit of goodwill or one bit of their presence and their immortality in the eyes of the audience. So any form of criticism destroys their status, and because they have to rely so heavily on their status as a be all and end all manufacturer of these nice things, any of these critical reviews or even words or sentences or whatever are in their mind a nail in the coffin of the brand. It's not about them not understanding that the next product will hopefully be better than the previous one, or this is how you make better products through listening to criticism, but rather to say that they have this image that they are desperate to maintain toward the audience, because if they don't do it well, somebody else will. And there are some of these brands who are in the eyes of the audience untouchable. If you look at us or anyone else criticizing Patek over the last 15 years, up until the last year or so, people were like, how dare you criticize the Holy Trinity? People were like defending the brand on the brand's behalf because they have consumed so much of this nonsense that this is a brand that can do no wrong. So now that, and the brands know that, oh, this is where we can aspire. Maybe one day we too can become Patek, the untouchable brand. Although we have seen that fall now, finally. So again, this is, I think, something that they're trying to take care of and aspire toward.
That's a very interesting perspective, David, to share a little bit what's on the other side. And I sympathize on a human level that a lot is at stake for these brands. What you're describing is this industry is competitive. And if they're not offering enough for the money, the consumers will find that out. And they're desperately hoping that we as media fill in those shortcuts. Right? Like if they're not doing something appropriate, they want us to be like, yeah, it's not great, but you still are going to love it. They want us to do that extra work for them. We're here to transmit authentic passion to people that wouldn't discover it. We're not here to make up for their faults or to, overlook their shortcuts and things like that. And I think that's what one of the problems come in. So we need that access. We need them to trust us, but it really comes down to the fact where by virtue of us being interested in covering them, we think that like 80 or 90% of our attention is going to be positive. Maybe that other 10 or 20% is questionable, but it's like overall we're lifting them up. They expect 100% positivity. Forget about them ever wanting to pay for any of it. That's a whole other story. But they can't contend with anything less than 100% support, even if at the end of the day, with our 90 or 80% support, we're still helping them make a profit.
That's all
So,
true.
compare and contrast that with the car industry and how media deals with the car industry, because I don't get the feeling that they're quite as precious, like that they stop. You know, we've
they
seen
are.
magazines, but we've seen magazines criticize cars, and then they still get the next one in for review.
Those days are gone, I think.
Right? Okay, you think that I mean, I don't consume a lot of car media nowadays as I used to, so maybe it's just maybe it's like the old-fashioned Top
Things
Gear
have changed, Rick. David's right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So who's following who? Is everyone just trending towards the posture of control? We want to control everything about media. I mean, you see in Formula One, I was sitting watching Formula One and my wife was asking me, why is there somebody standing next to the driver recording what they say that's also obviously in the driver's team? And it's like, well, because they want a record of absolutely everything that was said, so that they can check that the message is the same, that no one's deviating. Because you can even tell, you know, if some journalist asks too difficult, if some journalist ask Max Verstappen, Max, I see you're wearing a Tag Heuer today. See at home, do you wear Rolexes? You know, if somebody was to ask a question that was not part of the standard fare of sycophancy in F1, that would be recorded, and that journalist would just not get access to these drivers. Is that is the watch industry ahead of that curve or behind that curve? Is it getting worse or is it getting better?
I think the people at the watch brands think the stakes are higher than they are. You know, David and I years ago used to joke that like with embargoes and new releases, like these brands are treating this like it's nuclear secrets. Like this is just a freaking watch. Why do they care so much about, you know, you got to promise never to tell anyone about this. And they just take themselves too seriously. I mean, it really just comes down to that. The stakes are not that big for them. And they will continue to sell watches. There's no product out there that is universally loved. There's no brand or watch out there that's universally well received. You know, I tell brands, I'm like, look, go read your average Rolex review on our site or others. Like, you think it's 100% positive? No, it's usually like 50-50. It's sort of like sports. If everyone loved the same team, the whole hobby would be boring as hell.
Horo Swagger, passion plus story equals sales. Yeah, discuss Borisic, fear of criticism speaks to deep insecurity and the clay feet of the industry as a whole. Yeah, that seems to be getting some applause in the chat. So what's the future? Do you expect, I mean, with the number of shows that there now are, so you've got, we discussed this last week or the week before, Watches and Wonders. It's International Watch Day is the 10/10 thing. I think that's what it's called. 10th of October. Ripley's falling asleep even thinking about it. Geneva Watch Week, Geneva Watch Day. Do you think, I mean, are brands just not going to get the coverage? You know, there's only so much positivity of everybody saying, oh, this is great, that you can cope with.
So here's what I know. David, you want to say something?
No.
Well, I think the brands are still trying to figure out.
It's because he's owned by Patek. That's why David's not saying anything.
Oh yeah, I own 3 of their ties, so I guess I'm in their pocket now.
That's how you get your purchase history built.
He wants to be high on the list for the next one.
The next Cubitus, David, first in line. Well, I think the watch brands are still trying to figure out how to actually market themselves in a developed fashion. You know, right now they're relying on releasing new stuff as a way to promote themselves, which is important. But, you know, again, to go back to the automotive industry, they roll out new cars annually, maybe annually, depending on the model. But this isn't like it's June, time to have a blue version of that thing we debuted in January. That doesn't happen. So there's all of the other things that brands do throughout the year to promote the stuff that they've released and got us excited about. So I think right now, some of these ideas that you're seeing thrown around are ways to try to get people interested in watches or to promote watches or whatever a brand is doing, but not by actually having any type of marketing plan, just kind of, doing a 10-10 thing.
Boris that's in the chat makes a point about the car industry and Top Gear and Top Gear being refused. The interesting thing there is I seem to recall that whenever Top Gear or the really big, something we can't do as watch media, were refused access to something, they would go and find somebody that owned one who, was confident enough in their own purchasing that they didn't care what Top Gear said, or they just go and buy one of the cars.
Oh, we've
review
gone
it.
around these things, Rick, a number of times. It's not that
So
we can't do this. Of course we can do it.
But
We've done
we can't go out and buy the watches to review
I don't
them.
care.
But,
That's fine. Top Gear didn't buy it. They bought a Challenger in America for like $45,000. That's what they did. They didn't buy like any of the crazy stuff. We've done a number of times that we go to retailers or collectors or whatever. So it's not like brands can lock us out of coverage or access to products that will never work.
So
I just wanted to comment on sort of the cyclical nature of access and what you're talking about. And I think of lessons that I learned from watch retailers. Very early on in this industry, the fight that media is now having with brands was a fight that retailers have been having with brands. And we see what that's translated into, where the brands fight with retailers. Sometimes they need them when they have poor distribution, but if they think that they're popular, then they'll build their own stores and try to cut them out. And the attitude from a lot of retailers when a brand would cut their account, meaning you no longer can sell Autumn RP Gay, for example, because we're going to sell it down the street, was never as angry as I thought it would be, because sometimes they would spend years like building up a clientele and really popularizing. Yeah, there's been some famous fights, but for the most part, a lot of the retailers who I discussed, especially in private, about their feelings when brands are taken away were like, kind of like, yeah, I've been here before. And you want to know what? When times are bad, they come running back and begging. And then when things are good, they pull away. And then they come running back. So the brands have had a couple of years where like, oh my God, guys, we can control it all. We don't need those third-party opinions. We can pay influencers and we can pay Meta and get straight to the audience. And we can do it all of ourselves. And then they realize, that's hard and expensive, and these influencers cost a freaking fortune. And all that control and all that positivity I want, I can't afford it. And now I have to pretend again. Oh, wait a minute. There's those watch media guys that they have some influence. Maybe I'll chat with them again. And then it sort of starts all over. So we have this cyclical cycle of how they sort of need and don't need third parties. I've seen it with retailers. It's very similar with media. I've already seen brands bounce back, but the reality is they're so excited about the idea of having total control that they will pursue all avenues of getting it. I don't have any sympathy for that. I don't think any entity anywhere should have so much control. It's not like someone's trying to prevent them from making good watches. They want to have total message control. They want to have total earning control. They want to have total everything control. It's not healthy in an ecosystem where you need other people to help sell, communicate, service, deliver your watches. So I think that what we have to be is practical and encourage sustainable behavior, not this ideal behavior where they get to have their cake and eat it too, so to say.
You at the start of that, you talked about the media fighting. I'm sorry, the only people I see fighting in the media realistically is us. I don't see any of the other media outlets obviously fighting with the brands,
upsetting the brands, left and right.
Upsetting the brands. I don't see it. There is no. I don't think there's anybody of any scale that I can think of. Maybe I don't consume enough of it.
Because they're all selling the watches. You're not going to upset the brand that you're selling.
Exactly.
It's the fight to survive, because the brands' plan don't allow them to make the audience happy and earn a living. They make too little money and they make too little members of their audience happy. So yes, it's not always a direct ongoing battle like we have, but I promise you, they would all rather do what we're doing. They would rather be able to say what they want to do, be paid for their good work. And yes, most of them mutter under their teeth. I had somebody just earlier today going back and forth with a whole, list of messages, very angry at the way that they were treated by brands. I hear a lot of it. People are afraid to speak up about it. I honestly don't know why I'm so confident in speaking up about it. I just truly believe that from a moral and practical perspective, what I'm suggesting is a better way of doing it than what the brands are doing.
Yes. Any final thoughts, experiences? I mean,
it's an evolving area, and we'll see where things go. And right now, I think there's a big split between those brands that quote unquote play ball with us and those that want to have an unreasonable relationship. And our perspective is, if you want to have an unreasonable relationship, we probably can't recommend your watches, because I think the consumer will also have an unreasonable relationship with you. And that could be in terms of pricing or how the watches are sold. But, from the moment I started doing this job, I've been hearing horror stories about how people are treated from brands. And I've attempted as often as possible to reduce those experiences.
Okay,
I'm here only for the unreasonable relationships. That's all I care about.
All we want is, it's like what's that series of, I'm not we want to be bullied by the brands. That's it. That's all we're interested in.
Horological masochism.
But the consumers make the brand. Look how screwed up this is. All these brands 100% rely on consumers choosing to buy their products. Right, every Rolex, every Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Richard Mille, there's a person out there that makes a decision. I want to buy this. They don't need it. It's not like my job demands having this tool. They make a choice. And so the idea that people jump through hoops to get something they don't need and ultimately are completely fine without is a kind of insane thing. Like, good for the brands of doing it, but the consumers have all the power. So why are they always acting like the brands and the people selling them stuff have all the power? That's totally perverted.
Yeah. Interesting. There has been some arguments going on YouTube in the past couple of weeks with a couple of YouTubers whereby somebody forgets, or some deliberately or otherwise doesn't mention the fact that they got the thing for free or they're sponsored by the brand, and then everybody piles in going, "Oh, you forgot to mention," and we've kind of almost created. And I don't think we're guilty of doing this. Maybe we are. The opposite problem, which is criticizing all the people that are doing it wrong. I don't think we're quite fallen into that trap, but there is now a community of whataboutery on YouTube and on podcasts of going, "Oh, you weren't 100% pure in how you did that." Now, okay, if you forget something once, then shame on me and all the rest of it. But
I'll tell you what it's about.
The rise of that.
We've been talking about this exact issue over the last couple of weeks. This is not the creators. I don't think they have a problem saying that it's sponsored. In fact, they want to say sponsored because that's a message to other advertisers that that's something you can do. It's the advertisers. They want these payments to be discreet. They don't want them disclosed. We have had conversations with big brands, and I'll say, I won't mention the brand because we don't need those problems, but they suggest to us that we do stuff like that. I point out very clearly that is illegal. And their response to that is, "Oh, but all your colleagues are doing it." Competitors. They use
that is how it goes.
All your competitors do. And like, but that's why this is happening. That's why I put so much pressure on the brands. The content creators, I believe, by default, want to do things a good way, but they're mercenaries. They'll take the money and they won't complain too much because, for whatever reason, they don't have the drive we have to have these fights. Okay, but again, the consumers hurt, but if you blame the creators, you also misunderstand the issue, because all that will happen is those brands will go to some other creator who's willing to play those games. And when they get sick of it, they'll find some other creator. The brands will just sort of jump around to whoever's willing to do their funny business. If you just attack the creator, the underlying issue does not get solved.
Yeah. Agree. Right. Well, let's move on and speak about some watches.
Those things.
Those things, yeah. Those things were supposed to be. Let's go to this. Ariel, you wrote an article on this from Victorinox. The Victorinox Swiss Army Automatic. I'm becoming increasingly interested in some of the watches that Victorinox are producing, especially at the price bracket they're producing them at. What did you think of this?
What the hell is this thing?
Sounds like David has an opinion.
David clearly has an opinion.
How did this happen? It's again.
I thought this was all right, but
nobody designed. It's another one of those things. Really.
Okay, well, that's an opinion.
Probably by an intern. I'm not going to say it's nobody. It's an intern design.
There's definitely somebody involved.
It's for a very novice enthusiast who needs a constant reminder of where the crown is. Also, if reading the minutes is too difficult for you, then forget it. You can't on this one.
Yeah,
hours
That is
only.
cool. I will give them that. That's cool.
I thought this was all right, but maybe just an amateur at this.
It's kind of like a Fisher Price, like my first Swiss wristwatch.
My first.
I kind of feel like the
crystal.
name of it is so generic. I mean, your 10-year-old's gonna love this.
Yeah. Aren't there a few too many my first Swiss watch that's not too good out there at this point?
I mean, look, Victorinox has all those my first like pocket knife, so they just have to have the watches to go with it.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
In the chat, it's being identified as Longines. Well, so how many watches can you identify in this watch? So I'm seeing Panerai for the numerals, Longines for the shape. Those sword hands is Omega. Anything else? The bezel, obviously Rolex, but actually quite Christopher Wardy in its execution. The
Why does it have
bracelet.
a triangle at 15? What's happening
pointing
there?
to the crown. This is a Victorinox thing. They often, if you look through a lot of our reviews of their sport and tool watches, for whatever reason, there's an arrow pointing to the crown to let you know that it's there.
Is this a rotating bezel?
No.
No.
Okay. Oh, that's.
But
a
it doesn't.
cool thing.
Okay.
Look,
then
the
it does
case
make
is
sense.
very well made. It's an in-house made case. It's got a cool look to it. It's pretty durable looking.
Looks well made.
The mesh metal bracelet is fine. It's not a bad watch. It's a new generation of entry-level timepiece. I've always liked Victorinox. They always offer a lot for the money. There's some design mistakes for sure. I'm not going to defend it at all. Some of the ways they design the markers on the bezel and the dial make no sense. And this is actually toned back. When they first started this design language, it was even worse. But it's like a disease they need to get over, like over several years. They don't just get a cure. They just like slowly get over it. Eventually these nonsensical arrows will be phased out. But I think what goes to show is that every couple of years they're trying to do something new while focusing on a heavily Swiss-made product that does, fit in around that $1,000 price point. And again, with all these other brands up there pushing prices even higher, I kind of forgive some of these weird design quibbles because again, it is a well-made watch.
It is a well made. Yeah, I was not arguing against that. It does appear to be well made and priced more or less sensibly, but it's just
I want my minute markers.
These
it would
class
cost
are
exactly
horrible.
the exact same amount of money to get the design right as opposed to do it like this, because clearly they were not trying to save money on it. The dial looks expensive, the lume is expensive.
But then
the
you
case is
couldn't hire a
expensive.
bunch of hip young people to design it. And
That's
young
true,
people
that's
know
true.
things that
from a
people,
kindergarten, probably.
Yeah.
It's funny that they put the outline of the Swiss Army knife on the display case back, as if the most interesting thing about this, when explaining it to someone, when there's, oh, nice watch, thanks, it's Victorinox. Who? The Swiss Army knife people. Oh, really? They make watches? Yeah. And you like flip it over and show them the stencil of the watch, like that, or of the knife. That's almost why I can imagine it's there. That this is just to make it known that this came from the same people who make the
I get
knives.
confused. I think a corkscrew is going to come out of the side of the watch or something.
That would be amazing. I would if they could make that happen, like just put the little tiny Swiss Army knife into the flank of the case. I'd be all on board with that.
Is that the least decorated movement you've ever seen on a Swiss
No.
watch?
No,
I've seen way less
Definitely
decorated.
not.
way less decorated. Yeah.
Look at a
Is it
Landeron.
You
Is it
don't know, Rick,
possible
how
to-
low the bar goes. It's low.
I don't know.
Someone
So
has taken it and
how
buried
how
it. It is
less
so
decorated
far-
can it be?
Oh,
okay, it's got-
Rick, don't ask that question. It
Who did I write about? I wrote about somebody who was a major offender. Hold on.
Landeron, right? I'm going to the brands. We'll do this.
It's a movement maker that's quote unquote Swiss made.
Oh, right, okay. So it's not actually a watchmaker.
No, it's a movement maker, and they're again Swiss made, but they look exactly like the Chinese ones. So I think it's just barely getting into the regulations there.
Although you can get the Landeron 24, which is the ETA 28241, in the more upgraded aesthetic trim level, which has blued screws and a little bit of perlage.
Wait till you actually see what it looks like. You'd be like, wow, did the machine do this?
No, the machine would have done it nicer. I don't know how they've done it then.
Okay, right. Well, let's move on. We will do some hit miss maybe, but let's go around the room and see who's actually got what on the wrist or on the table. Ariel, what are you wearing today?
I'm wearing a watch that matches my shirt, though completely unintentionally. This is the embroidered Audemars Piguet bezel. I'm just going to say that rather than Royal Oak bezel. I just think it's funnier. And this is a watch that came out like just now. This is a red and white for the for Canada Day 2025 Marathon Navigator. And this is their latest Canada Day one. And they have a couple of cool little things on there. It says Adinak on the side, which is Canada backwards, which is a brand name that they also own. And so for many years, they had that on their military watches. And apparently that passed through because the watches were not supposed to say where they came from, but they're like, we want everyone to know these were from Canada. So this is a proud one. And for the 60th anniversary of the maple flag, which I did not know.
The maple flag in Canada is only 60 years old.
Yeah.
All right.
Before that, there was a different flag.
So the Submariner has been around longer than Canada.
Okay, my house has been around longer than the whole of America. So there we go. Or the whole of the United States of America, because obviously there were people there before the white people came across. Let's not get into that. Anyway, David, what are you wearing or what's on the table today?
On the table is the good old... Is it upside down? Is it? Oh, yeah. It doesn't have anything pointing at the crown, but it's.
I love that you love that watch, David.
Super Seville mural. Yeah, I freaking love this watch. It's so great. I have it around. I wear it around, but just not at home. I love the fact that it's always super accurate and looks funky. That's a good combination.
Good. Ripley, what are you wearing? In fact, so what we're going to talk about next, and what's wearing
the hat of the fictional F1 team from the IWC movie that they gave us. Like
do you think there's a chance that someone actually, like the ultimate flex of Apple, the richest company in the world, would now be to actually launch a genuine Formula One team named after the one in the film?
Like Cadillac, it took them quite a while and some appeals and some no's. It's not a money thing. You have to, I mean, just like everything probably in Formula One, it's a corruption thing, and you just really need to know the right people. But after filming the movie, they probably know the right people. So they probably, expect an 11th team on the grid, or like 12th team on the grid. So that's on the hat. Like Ariel, we got the AP bezel, but I have the printed, not embroidered one for maximum lightweightness in the California heat.
Because Ariel really notices the difference in the weight of the embroidered t-shirt, holds them back every day.
It's Formula One, Rick. Every
right.
Oh, you can feel it. You can feel. Sometimes you like the extra weight, like the gold watch, and sometimes you want to be very light. Very light in your step.
Yeah, I'm wearing the Richard Mille. This is like the carbon Royal Oak. It's all about the lightness, and then on the wrist is all of the chunkiness, the frogman, and then on my computer. Well, it's not quite on my computer yet. 19th, and it's like they make those pads that go on either side of your trackpad, so you don't scratch up your watch, or in this case, not my watch, a review sample from your laptop. So,
sorry, they do what?
They make like these pad things that go on either side of the trackpad, so like the clasp doesn't scratch the computer, vice versa. Really, it's more about the watch than the computer. But yeah, these well-made like things that mount on to your laptop.
Why is this not an advertiser? Is my question.
Yeah,
they need to be sponsoring.
Just use one of these. That solves the problem.
I did tell them, I'm like, you're talking to people who are always wearing watches that aren't ours, that we don't want to scratch, and we're on our laptops all day. I think this would be a great. we can start wearing your
Absolutely.
stuff plastered all over it. We've got room
Well,
on
I
our
mean-
sleeves like an F1 driver. We can just keep covering
This is better than the company that essentially wanted to shrink wrap your watch. Do you remember this company? They wanted you to literally put a plastic coating over your watch that
Hey, could
somehow
be-
you're
could
not
be
supposed to
worse.
see.
No, this is
Could be
kind
the
of
watch lock.
this is nice. It stays on the laptop, and I guess whatever material they've used doesn't make the goo that comes if you were to use like tape or whatever.
Well, our Hitmas maybe is currently unsponsored, mainly because our opinions can't be bought. But if they would like to sponsor Hitmas, maybe they would seem to be a sensible sponsor. I'm in Scotland wearing a Panerai. Right, let's go on to our first watch, which is the one that Ripley is wearing, the Casio G-Shock MRG Goliath Frogman. I'm not reading those letters and numbers dive watch. Ripley, give us your hot take on this to begin with.
This is it's an MRG, so the highest level of G-Shock, and it's the Frogman, so it's already a premium offering within the G-Shock canon. And the Frogman's their dedicated dive watch, despite the fact that it still has 200 meters of water resistance. You can operate the buttons underwater. So this is like the ultimate expression of Casio's fully analog diver. This isn't the first time we've seen this basic watch. This is the fourth, I believe. They first rolled it out in blue and black. Then they created a red one with a yellow one that came with a bracelet and a strap as a limited edition. Then they made a red one, and now we have a green one, only comes on the strap. So even though it's like $4,900, it's the least expensive one of these. And the colorway for this one comes from the Goliath frog, which is the world's largest species of frog. It's an absolute whopper, a unit of a reptile, absolutely huge.
Amphibian.
I had to see. Oh yeah,
amphibian. Yes. Let's get right.
Just to think of it as swimming is also crazy. It's the size of like a deflated beach ball, but it's a very nice watch. The case has over 70 components, all very nice titanium as usual. It's the hardened type of titanium, so that's grade 5, but they do their deep hardening process and then give it a coating. And then this colorway is the green one, plenty of lume as well as a backlight. But yeah, very, very expensive Casio dive watch.
Yeah. Okay. Let's give it a vote. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Join in the chat. Oh, got a gather round. So first of all, a maybe from Ariel. Why is it a maybe?
It's a strong leaning towards hit, but I have some issues with this. So obviously, big Casio fan, big MRG fan, big dive watch fan. I don't quite get this watch. It's intimidatingly complicated for a sport that you don't want extra things to sort of think about. I don't really know I think it has like a depth gauge on there or something. I just don't really know what it does. I don't understand why this is better than some of the other ones. Like, I guess I'm just a little bit confused here. It's no doubt well made. It does a bunch of stuff, but they have other watches with this movement. They have other Frogmans that seem a little bit more practical for diving purposes. I guess I'm just not aware of exactly why this is better than some of the other watches out there. I appreciate some of the elements, but the sum of the parts just leave me confused.
The diving feature is in its diving mode, the hands stack in 0. So the hour and minute hand move together in one giant hand fashion. So to make it easier to track elapsed time. Now, if that wouldn't be a factor, if it wasn't such a cluttered dial, or if it was like the digital Frogman, which is just a digital screen, kind of idiot proof. So they've kind of created an issue and then created a solution for the issue that they had created for themselves.
Okay, it's been suggested in the chat that James says in the chat that this watch looks like it fell on you and trapped you against the floor.
You're
that you're reviewing it on.
Inaccurate. It's talk about a unit. This thing is thick. Look at this thing. It's a cheeseburger.
Yeah,
but it's like we need this, like we need the Goliath frog. Like, I'm happy to exist, but I don't know what to do with it in my life.
David, you gave it a miss.
Yeah, I gave it. It's for multiple reasons. It's cool looking up on first impression, and I like the colorway. I like the colors, the textures. And it looks cool. But other than that, it's too thick. It's virtually unwearable. I really don't like this direction that Casio and G-Shock has gone. With the with this, if you look at the strap picture where the buckle is, the holes in the strap are just way too far apart, and I'm experiencing that with my G-Shock as well. Not the white one, which is super comfy, but some of these more high-end ones where they're just simply too far apart. There's one where if I use that setting, it leaves a mark on my hand, and in the next one I can literally flip the watch around. So I just don't get it why they make these straps here. Even on this picture replay, I can see that it's basically pinching your hand. But if you were to use the other one right next to it, then it would be way
Fall
too
off.
loose, and you couldn't take a good picture of it because it's too thick, too heavy.
We don't call that micro adjust. We call it macro adjust.
Yeah, it's the mega adjust. It's just weird. So it's unwearable, and then unwearable watches 9 out of 10 times gets a miss from me.
Okay, Ripley, you obviously enjoyed it. Continued with a hit.
Yeah, I said it's a hit, just like the Goliath frog itself. I wouldn't go out and rush out to buy one for me to make it as part of my daily routine, but I'm just happy to marvel at it. It's a very impressive piece of metal. It being finished in its natural color rather than black like the other 3 versions, you really get to kind of more appreciate some of the intricacies of what they've done with it. Is it practical? No. Is it really wearable? Well, not for someone like wrists of mine. Would I rather dive with it than a regular Frogman? No, but it's just a cool watch. It doesn't feel like a watch. It feels like something you should like strap onto Master Chief from Halo and send him like to go fight aliens. It's a ridiculous piece. It's good, but it's just cool. It falls into that category.
Yeah, I agree. I think it just falls into that's cool category. The price isn't cool. The layout, maybe just the sum of all the pieces, like all the individual pieces are terrible. It's off center. It's huge.
The off-center thing is a Frogman thing in general. It's to keep it like they've always been like that. That's kind of the quirk of the Frogman. Although it does make, I don't even know how wide that is. Like where it needs the case. It's like I don't have a ruler big enough in my house.
Yeah, all the individual parts shouldn't work, but when you put them all together, it just is cool. What actually, just when I'm looking at the back of this, what is the S stand for?
The S. You always ask this. It's the S for sellers, like my last name. No, it's at the S. They put them on all the sample watches.
Oh, it's a Sam. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
And if you notice, whatever they've marked
we get the samples.
Yeah, whatever they've marked the S with is like not nearly as nice as the other engraving.
It does look like they've welded it on. It looks like
it depends. Often it's stamped, to be honest, but sometimes it's laser cut.
Yeah, they can't laser the carbon one. So when you see it on like the carbon back, it's like a really shoddy looking one. But yeah, the S for sample.
Cool. Right. Well, that is that. Let's move on to a slightly more classic dive watch, also looked at by Ripley this week. And obviously, before we even start, these are both a hit. My love is for sale.
Unbiased opinion. From
unbiased. You always get unbiased opinion in the show.
Were these from like 2010 on the random number generator?
I was going to say, if we ask Chives
in a drawer.
In the background, I'll ask Chives. I wonder if I can upload a picture from this and ask him to date when these watches are from. While I see if we can get the internet to do that, Ripley, give us a review.
Are they asking money for these? Like, do this
now?
So, is there hope that someone wakes up one of these Tuesday mornings and has to a Panerai boutique to buy one of these? Really, honestly.
So that's
each one of those racing stripes was worth about $2,000.
So I would have thought, you would. As someone who's not into boat racing, I'm not the person to really. Also, with someone with tiny wrists, a Panerai boat racing watch is like not my cup of tea, or not the thing I'm gravitating towards. But as much as I'd like to have a regular Panerai, the boat racing one's not it for me. But I say this in the article, they wouldn't keep doing this if it wasn't a success. This is the 3rd time they've renewed their partnership with the Luna Rossa racing team. And just right now on the brand's website, there are 15 different Luna Rossa Panerai watches.
Ripley,
so like,
You're talking about Panerai. The only thing they've been doing for the last 10 years is something that was not a success. So if there's one brand to which this doesn't apply, it's actually Panerai. There's no logic there.
So, par for the course, keeping the tradition going. They have these again. I don't think they're bad looking, but there's so many Luna Rossa models. They've done, I think, 2 different Experience Edition ones. This is like a big core thing for them now, in the same way that Omega's got James Bond or the Olympics or whatever. Panerai has the interior design show and the Luna Rossa racing team.
Interior design and yacht racing. It's a combo. Right, let's give these a vote. I have 3 hit signs here ready to release. So on your mark, set, hit, miss, maybe. Hit, maybe. Yeah, okay. Right, Ariel, why is it a hit?
Only the 3 hands a hit. I hate that chronograph. That movement I've always hated. I just don't feel it belongs in a Panerai. Anyways, I'm actually leaning into the Luna Rossa thing. I like it because I like the world of boat racing. I think that it's silly how expensive and aspirational it is. I imagine being someone who can throw, what is this, $10,000 away on a watch I'll wear for like one weekend just to feel like I'm cool and I fit in. I just kind of like how silly it is. The colors aren't bad. Doesn't feel new in any way, shape, or form. It looks like they just put a strap on an existing watch. I already want like second to take off the seconds hand and put on. I want the little seconds hand to look like the boat. I think that would be cool, like a top-down view of the boat. I'm just really getting into theme, forgetting what it costs. Yes, it should cost $2,000. No, it costs many more times that. Again, forget the chronograph. And I'm just, again, I like the fact that Luna Rossa is on there, and I can kind of ignore the Panerai name.
Okay. I should add that so Chives the Watt Butler has correctly identified this as this year release. Should also add, for anyone that uses Chat GPT, you can look up Chives the Watt, but I think this is how it works, that I've made it a public release, so you too can consult Chives the Watch Butler if you wish and send us your content if you can find it on Chat GPT.
So if you want a rude Scottish AI to tell you watch related stuff, apparently Rick
it's exactly how he's been programmed. It's been programmed so that I can go on holiday and he can do the show instead. David, how'd you vote?
It's a miss. I'm not excited by these at all. I wouldn't recommend anyone outside of the Luna Rossa team to buy one of these. That's it.
You think they buy them?
They might, or they might just get them. I think I'm getting vibes of Breitling and Bentley collaboration. You know, when they just couldn't wait for the time to run out on those contracts, and you know, you could tell that they had a couple of years left, and they sort of had to make a watch. Maybe this is what's happening.
No, they just renewed. This is to celebrate the renewal for a 3rd time of their.
Well, then they deserve it.
Look at the design.
Try to exercise a bit of empathy there, but that's okay. Out the window.
But that chronograph now has little red tips on the pushers, just like those inexpensive watches.
Ooh. I mean, precious red. Like, that's why the white dial Omega Speedmaster costs more. Precious red ink on it.
Nothing makes sense anymore.
Borisic is asking David if you think that Panerai employ any designers in the same way.
No,
if
you look back at one of our April 1st.
Yeah, we have an article.
Yeah, we have an article.
It's just a randomizer at this
point. Breaking New Beats is suggesting yes, they do actually have a designer. It's just been out of the office for 15 years. Is what the problem is. Right. Ripley.
I said it's a maybe. Like Ariel, that chronograph's just not it. But the 3 hand's a good looking watch. Again, I wouldn't buy this over a regular one just because I can't tell you a thing about the Luna Rossa team, let alone a tenuous connection to a watch brand or how this watch might be good for that. I just like the way it looks. Gray and red's a good color combo. If this wasn't a Luna Rossa watch, I think it'd probably be on the short list of better looking, simple, 3-handed Panerais. In a vacuum, I like it. I'm not big on the collaboration theme, but that's just because I don't sail. But if I was into that world, I'd probably be a fan. So it's a maybe. This is not an offensive duo of watches. or certainly not by Panerai standards, at least.
For the high standards of offensiveness that they set,
some of those Navy SEAL experience watches where it's like it's almost a caricature, where it's like it's cool, but man, you beyond unwearable. Like, you want to call this thing unwearable? At least this is titanium. Didn't they do one in bronze or something? Like, find a heavier metal.
The original bronzo. Yeah. Come on, guys, this is gorgeous. Look at it. Look at it. It's gorgeous.
Look at that thin red line.
Look at that.
Look at that thing on the right hand side of the case.
Look at the thing. I mean, come on. Well, anyway, yes,
and that's the grayest gray I've ever seen. Nice and flat, no texture at all.
Don't know if I've
just
seen that
nice,
dial
lifeless
before.
gray.
The dial's just very inventive. That design is just groundbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I want one. I want them
all. If you see clouds that color, you go the other way, right?
Maybe that's what it is. It's a Scottish thing.
Like, that's acid rain. That's like a very unhealthy color.
Okay, well, we'll accept that I'm in the minority here in terms of loving Panerai. That at least have one customer. Not that I've bought more than one, so I don't suppose I count as an existing customer because I've got one, and I didn't even buy it new. So
that's
there
enough
you go.
For you, right? Like, I got the whole
one second-hand Panerai is all you need. Right, final watch today for the hit miss maybe treatment is this. Also a Ripley, the Ressence Type 8 DEI. I thought the Americans had got rid of DEI. No? Have I got that wrong?
DE1.
D1, right? Okay, and D2 watches. Yeah, this won't be allowed to be imported into the States.
You can't enter the States with this watch.
Yeah, can't say so. This. It says you're pro DEI. Oh dear. Right. Anyway, Ripley, tell us about this from Ressence.
So this base model is kind of their quote unquote entry level model compared to other ones that have more indicators. This is not. This is a relatively pared back offering. It's basically a time only. That dark disc is the hours. It rotates, twice a day, and then that disc mounted within it with the weird offset concentric circles is the minute disc. It's got a minute hand. It points it out. There's two different colorways. They're both basically the same on the inside, and it's just kind of the outer track that gives it the colors. This is a collaboration. It's done with, oh God, the artist name escapes me. Something with a DE, right? Help.
Oh, is that where it comes from? Right. Okay.
Yeah. That's the guy's name. Come on.
His name's DEI. DE1.
No.
He's not getting the States either.
It'll say it multiple times in here.
All right, you want me to Daniel Engelberg.
Inside Out. Yes.
Engelberg.
Anyway, this is sort of in his style where this translates well from their concept to sort of this art series he did. Very interesting watch. Kind of reminds me of that AP with the offset concentric circles that augment the depth. But in this, it's sort of the reverse. It gives it a sunken appearance, but at the same time, it's a domed thing. Someone in the comments said that the pink one looks like a stoned fisheye, and I just haven't been able to shake that thought out once they said it. So there's that now. But it's a very artistic expression of a Ressence for a watch that normally looks kind of like a weird smartwatch. This is a very different aesthetic direction, and it's their entry-level model, but it's a collab, so it's quite expensive. It's a stone's throw away from some of the more complex models, but it being simple works very well for the design. And if you look up some of the artist's artwork within this series, it very much sort of mirrors this offset concentric circle playing with depth sort of concept.
Cool. And Ressence seemed to be a brand I thought was going to really take off like 6-7 years ago. I thought this is the future, and it just doesn't seem to have really advanced any of the. Is it struggling, or has it reached its? Have we reached peak Ressence?
The price floor is high. Like, these are expensive watches, even when they're done on a minimal level. It's based on an ETA movement, and it's this like magnetically coupled module. I've never had one in my possession for an extended period of time. They're wound and set through the case back, but because it's magnetically coupled, you have to turn it slowly. You can't just torque it.
Oh, right, okay.
So I imagine there's,
Ripley's
it-
twerking days are over.
yeah, yeah, you can't torque your resonance. So I think it's not necessarily the most intuitive or easiest one to use. The older ones that had a bunch of oil in them, God knows how, where you're going to get that upper module serviced. So I think people were scared off from it. And when it's like $30,000, it's not necessarily the thing someone just takes a flyer on. So they have their audience, and they're working within it and diversifying some of the designs they make, but they're all expensive. This is like 20 something $1,000, and this is like
22
basically
and a
a
half,
two-hand, yeah, 22 and a half, and it's a two-handed watch
Yeah.
based on an
Oh,
ETA.
Okay, is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. I'm feeling very generous today. It's 3 hits. 2 hits, 3 hits, and a maybe. Ariel, why is it just a maybe?
So I consider the founder of Ressence a friend. We have interesting conversations. We've been very honest with one another. And I know a lot of the background stuff of why they haven't achieved some of the things that they've done. A lot of it has to do with very difficult to make. Not a lot of them have performed very chronometrically well. And I'm kind of against the idea that on top of the already high price of a watch, we need to pay more because now it's suddenly an art object, when I'm sure these dials don't cost that much more to make, and there's already plenty of built-in margin to share with the artists. So on one level, I like that they're doing this, but I don't like this as like an excuse to be like, and charge a lot more money for it, because now it's not just a watch, but it's collectible art. And that's just marketing hooey. I can't really tell if this is pretty, or I'll get really kind of annoyed at looking at it after a while. They're quite small in size and a bit feminine, so I'm not sure if it's right for me. So I like the idea of the brand. I will second the idea that if you are concerned about reliability and the thing working perfectly, Ressence or not every product might be perfect for you. And again, I'm just not sure if this is nice enough to actually be considered art on top of a Ressence. So again, maybe because I like a lot of things the brand does, but I don't think they've ever sort of hit the potential they could have. And again, for sometimes very understandable reasons. And I admire a lot of their a lot of things they worked on. I mean, Benoit, the founder of the brand, has put in an enormous amount of love and passion into building something.
David, you give it a hit.
Yeah, easy hit for me. I really like the application of these shapes and colors. They seem to go organically with the overall theme and design and functionality of the watch. So I think it's a cool execution. I wish these were not quite so damn expensive though, but cool looking pieces.
Ripley.
Yeah, it's very expensive. It's not something if I had the type of money where this is like a trivial purchase, I'd happily vote for and get one. So that's why I said it's a hit in a vacuum, irrespective of the price or the ownership or performance of it. I just think it's a really cool looking piece. I wouldn't necessarily, want to treat it in the same way I would a collectible piece of art, but in terms of just a very visually striking watch that has some interesting things going on mechanically as well. Yeah, for sure. This thing looks cool, and I'll take the stonefish eye one. I think the brighter colors make it much more dynamic.
In the chat, Horoswagger making the point of, or I suppose posing the question, is it possible that Ressence could make something similar to the MB&F Mad 1, something that takes it down a level of accessibility? Or is this basically to get this effect? There's really no other way of doing it than it costing 22 grand.
I don't think it needs to cost 22 grand. I think if you look at the entry point for the Type 8 collection for their standard production models, that's probably about as low as you can get it. These are quite a bit less complex than their, let alone like the E-Crown thing they do where it like syncs to your Bluetooth and all of that stuff. It's just a complex mechanism. It's not as simple as just like swap the hands out for a dome display. You have one thing rotating in another. It's magnetically coupled. It's not really like just get creative like a Mr. Jones type of watch where they're getting very creative with the dial and hands, but they're not having to reinvent the wheel from a mechanical perspective.
They could by not making it mechanical. I mean, I think of Quinting,
Interesting,
which is I don't even know if they're still around, but a high-end quartz maker. It was one of the only ones for a while. That sold quartz movements that did things you really couldn't do with mechanical. They were all analog. And I think that's the direction here. I think that there's interesting electronic movements that could be built to power stuff like this. It's not like you see the movement. The whole point of this is a visual effect. I think that's the way to go. I don't think that the brand is inherently against it. I just think that it would require, of course, a lot of engineering, because you might need to have new movements, and that would be more money than they have. Ironically, sometimes building these mechanical watch modules can be less expensive than building sort of a new electronic system.
Ripley, you kind of mentioned the idea that if you had the money, my question is, this is not a daily wearer. Even if you had the money, this is not a watch you're wearing every day. I'm curious as to what everyone's go-to not everyday wearer would be if money was no object. If the £500,000 suddenly dropped into your lap, would you feel you had to spend the £500,000, or would you spend the 22 grand on this? So you can only buy watches with the money that's landed. You're not allowed to save some of it for a house.
So what are the parameters of this game?
So
we just have to choose a $500,000 watch. I'm spending all the money.
Yeah, you're spending all. I'm just curious to what your go-to, or if I had the money, that would be nice to have watch would be.
Yellow Saxon Hublot. That's the end game piece. Like that.
All right, okay. Yellow Saxon Hublot.
The neon yellow Saxon Hublot. Yeah, that's.
Right. Okay. The sapphire one.
Absolutely. No, Saxon. Yeah. It's not sapphire. It's Saxon. Instead of having a triangular molecular structure, it is cubic, so you get a much more vivid color that doesn't shift as much at different angles.
Right. Okay. And David, what would be your
EM? SAXEN.
SAXEN.
EM.
SE.
No, SAXA.
SAXEM.
EM, SAXM. Right, okay. I thought you were just getting me to try and
brilliant
type in
branding right there.
Rude things. There we go. So this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'd have a little money left over. I don't think it's full.
I think you would. You'd have a little money left over from your $500,000. But I'm just it's like what is your frippery watch? The one that you're like, yeah, just for the sake of it. David?
Oh, I would probably get
buying the same watch.
Dripping with diamonds, probably. That's what I would do.
So
I would get a rainbow Daytona, probably.
Rainbow, not just, or a rainbow Hublot. I'm wondering if actually everyone's go to frippery watch turns out it's an Hublot everyone would buy.
I could get an Hublot too. I mean, there's some nice ones out there. Yeah.
Yes, nice ones. Right, Ariel. Ultimate challenge. Making a choice.
Yeah, I don't know if actually the budget's enough for it. I'd probably I've been in the mood lately for
compromise, Ariel.
No, I want to hear this now.
$500 million compromise.
Only in this hobby. I've been thinking about something like a Grubel Force or a Ferdinand Berthoud. That's one of my tastes lately. Something like that. Again, those both have watches that far exceed $500,000 doesn't get you a lot of Grubel Force these days.
Good.
You can get
I can barely get a tourbillon. Maybe one. You
get one finished component in the movement for $500,000.
No strap. People have been asking in the chat. They're disappointed, Ariel, that you didn't name. You haven't yet named what your complications that you wish to invent are. People were asking from last week's show when we were talking about you've got this idea of complications for watches that nobody does. The people want to know. That people might want to steal the idea, but the people want to know.
Let's be honest. I have a history of having a lot of my ideas stolen, and I've been burned a lot by enthusiastically sharing. And all of you guys know all the creative projects I'm trying to work on all the time. So I genuinely want to hold on to ideas for the opportunity to maybe do them sometime, because again, this industry likes to take things that aren't theirs.
Good stuff. Right. Well, that is our show for this week. If you're tuned into the Blog to Watch Weekly live channel on YouTube, then you're going to hear a very brief discussion about why Ariel thinks, because Ripley's tipped me off, why Ariel thinks Tudor are producing a lot of chronograph watches at the moment. But you'll have to go to the live show to find out the reasoning for that. So from the main show, that's it. Goodbye from us. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
And now it's time for Ariel's conspiracy theory as to why Tudor are suddenly releasing a lot of chronographs.
Brace yourselves.
Okay, well let's first examine Tudor's release schedule. They used to have a once-a-year release where we go to Watches and Wonders or Basel World or whatever, and we'd see their new watches, and that was it. It was the same as Rolex. Then they started experimenting, like, oh, let's do a mid-year release, and they did like one, and now it's like every several weeks on some type of like Grand Seiko schedule. There's a new color version of something. They've stopped putting reasons behind it. It's just color, and that's the story. And a lot of them, ironically, have been the Black Bay chronograph, which, as you may remember, was part of this weird deal where Breitling and Tudor had like a movement exchange. Tudor gave Breitling these 3-hand movements that went into the Super Ocean 2 series, and basically that for a while. And Breitling's chronograph in a slightly modified form was used in Tudor's watches, as they did not have an in-house made movement. Just recently, an even new Super Ocean heritage came out that has a new in-house made 3-hand movement at Breitling. So they are no longer using any of the Tudor movements. And my suspicion is that Tudor is now going to stop using the Breitling ones, but they have a stockpile of them. So I think that they are making way for a new generation chronograph, and they're trying to do everything they can to sell out of the stock of movements that they've had from the other one. And they know that the most plausible way of doing that is coming out with, quote unquote, new watches. They're not very good at pushing existing stock. And this is such an interesting thing when you compare Rolex and Tudor. Rolex would not have to try too hard to push Submariners, right? Like if they had too many Submariners, they'd be like, okay, it's not going to be like rocket science to figure out how to push these. We'll just advertise the Submariner a little bit. Tudor has no particular ability to sell an existing model. Like other than the launch, they do not know how to support any of their watches. All brands know how to do these days is come out with a new watch. So, and this is how screwed up this is. It'd be actually cheaper if they just went ahead and just be like, let's just advertise these models to make them a little bit more popular, sell them. They just make slightly new ones. Cause again, it's like the carbon cases are like, I don't know, dirt cheap to make, right? Let's be honest. And when they do, look at a little color on there. A little red, a little pink stripe. Oh, yellow this time, right? That's nothing. They have the movements and then they call it a brand new watch. Again, I don't have direct evidence to support this, but it totally makes sense that they're trying to phase out these Breitling movements, move on from that, and to open up the market to their new chronographs. Because what Tudor does not want, which is even more difficult for them, if they have 2 chronograph watches on the market, oh my God, that would be confusing for people.
And then it would also, they're moving over all their like new models are getting the master chronometer Metis certification. So, I don't know if that would create any discrepancies between getting the Breitling one to hit that, or does that mean the Breitling ones should do that if you submitted them for testing? So it would make sense that they're going to roll out a new movement with Metis certification and be theirs. So I completely agree. And the smart part about them being limited editions, like the FXD Chrono Cycling editions that we've seen, is that this isn't a core collection model. They can release it 300 pieces, and this isn't like when it disappears thereafter because they phased it out. That's par for the course for a limited edition. It's not this thing that they launched and then discontinued it 18 months later or something like that.
So we've had a pink one. We've got a yellow one just released. We've had
the first one's
kind of blue and white. We've had red.
Well, the blue and white is a Black Bay chrono. These are Pelagos FXD chronos. Cycling edition, but not called cycling
I literally
edition.
Can't tell the difference. When I see these, I don't know. My brain does not know. Black Bay, Pelagos Chrono. So, I know they technically different, but my brain cannot tell them apart.
So my question is, if we are to be proved correct, then what would be the next? It means they're not done yet. There's going to be more. So what is the next? Because I'm reckoning because of the cycling thing, it's got to be something involving polka dots, and that will be the ultimate proof that if they produce something that involves a polka dot, white and red polka dot strap, then they're
so
definitely
a very
just
wealthy
it.
patron just needs to buy all these up. Because remember, if my idea is correct, they're just trying to run out of movements. So community, if you can buy all these up, Tudor will have no choice but to release.
To release the new thing.
So Tudor doesn't service the movements; they swap out the movements for a refurbished one at the time of service.
Warranty claims is where we're at.
Everybody with the chrono, bring it in for service. At a certain point,
pushing that button.
That'll exhaust the supply, and then we start fresh with the new.
Remember those?
Meta certified.
Are you familiar with
how
the
many
game?
Years have I predicted that Tudor's going to come out with a new chronograph? Is it like year 5 or 6 now? It's got to happen eventually, even on Rolex timeframes.
Yeah, if you keep saying it, at some point, it's definitely going to happen.
Are you familiar with the game Decathlon? That probably wasn't a game that reached the United States. Daley Thompson's Decathlon. It was an old Commodore 64 type generation game, and the whole thing about it was you had to push the button as fast as possible to make him run as quickly as possible around the track. So that's what we need Tudor wearers to do. Just start stopping that chronograph as fast as you can, make the warranty claim, get the movement swapped out. Tudor will have to move on as fast as possible to their new release. So yeah, any other colors you think they could swim with? Of yellow, pink, Tiffany blue, we've kind of had. Where would they go next? Gold, maybe some.
Hard to tell.
Full turquoise, everything.
We'll give
some
a red
precious
version, red
sapphire.
version.
Sapphire case.
Yeah, Saxon one. That'd be good.
Saxon case. There we go. Combining all our thoughts. Right. That's great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Good to see some new folk in there. Oh, the Velta's up next for a red one. So someone that knows something about cycling. I assume that makes sense to other people that know something about cycling. Thank you, everyone, for coming in the chat. And we will speak to you again in a week or so's time. Cheerio.
Thank you indeed.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone. Happy Canada Day.